The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's July the 19th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we're talking about the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And today we have a special show for you. Yes, we're releasing a new episode of Goats. We've been here before. We've talked about it on this show. But this is one that we feel extra special about. This time, Mario Cristobal is in the hot chair with Roy Firestone. And it's an interview that is just so riveting that we had to divide it into two parts. And there are so many elements to it that are incredibly special. And I think that you guys are really going to enjoy it. So to start out today's show, I thought we'd bring Roy back himself to talk about this. And Roy, welcome back to Good Morning CaneSport. And man, you haven't stopped beaming since spending that hour with Mario. And I knew that that's how it would go. He's such a special guy and such a unique human being. Anybody that knows him well will tell you that. And tell us a little bit about the hour that you spent with Mario.
Well, I had never met Mario Cristobal, not even as a player. I've covered Miami, obviously at ESPN for all those years. I've had a lot of experiences with coaches. Coker would be one, Jimmy Johnson, of course, both at Miami and, of course, later at Dallas. I knew Butch Davis very well. I interviewed him a number of times, Dennis Erickson. But this guy could be the most unique, and I think he's going to end up being maybe the most effective coach Miami's ever had. We talked a lot today about the fact that, when he says it's the dream job, and, people, you want to be, maybe cynical and say, yeah, I would love to have a dream job that pays me $8 million. Or, yeah, some dream job in 3 years, the Eagles will be calling, or the Bengals, and they'll offer you 12 and you'll be out of your dream job. And I kind of posed it that way. I said, you can understand people who say, oh, we've heard this before. But Gary, his answer was so powerful and riveting about why this matters to him growing up and having refugee parents. His father, Luis Cristobal Sr., and of course, Luis Jr. is his brother, of course, but grew up in communist Cuba and was jailed briefly. And so was his grandfather. And they came to this country with nothing. And they moved originally to Tampa. They came out of Tampa, came down here. And they just, everything they ever did was about work ethic, maintaining a kind of commitment to whatever they wanted to do in life. And then, of course, augmented with that is the mother, Clara. And we'll get to that in a second. But she passed away just as Mario was getting the job, literally within few hours. And that was powerful too. But Cristobal's answer about why Miami matters to him and what it was like as a kid riding his bicycle to see the practices and watch Michael Irvin and Blades and all those guys go at it at 5 o'clock after practices were over. And then dreaming of just getting a chance to be on that, the practice field. What's it, Greenleaf? I always get it wrong.
Green tree.
Sorry, forgive me. But, man, I've been around a lot of coaches in my life. I've been around the Dean Smiths and the Bob Knights and the Mike Krzyzewskis and the Valvanos and the Woodens. This is a whole different breed and a whole different generation of coach. He lives, eats, drinks, sleeps Miami football. We've talked about this before. He's a workaholic. He works 16, 17, sometimes 18-hour days. God knows what it'll be like in the season. He's a young man. He's going to be 52 in September, but he's still got a lot in his tank. And, this is another thing that people may not really think about. Everyone says, oh, he's the new coach of Miami. Guess what? He was a player and won 2 championships as a player, as his brother also was a player. But he also was a graduate assistant. He was a graduate assistant twice, then an assistant coach, and now a head coach. This guy, I counted it. It's probably with player and coach and graduate assistant, 6, 7 stops at Miami alone. And people may not realize how much he wanted this gig. And of course, he turned Oregon around. He also talked very candidly about defeat when he went to FIU and losing 23 in a row. Coming in, the team had lost 23 in a row. They hadn't had a winning season till 2010. And then they blamed him when they had a crummy year, 3-9, and fired him. And I asked him what it was like to feel like you were defeated. And he said, I learned a lot about it, but I learned to be competitively angry. And he talked about that. He talked about going to Alabama and under Nick Saban after that. By the way, in between a stop at Miami, very briefly, but they thought he was going to be a fixture at Miami, and he left to go to Alabama. A lot of people were pissed off at that, by the way. But he went to Bama. He coached for several seasons, had Outland Trophy winners, #1 draft picks on the offensive line. He was also assistant head coach. Then goes to Oregon, a crummy team also when he first came, inherited it, but then took him to 12 and I think 2 or something like that. Rose Bowl championship, Pac-12 coach of the year. And then he became one of the hottest properties in coaching. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I want people to know that this guy has been very well traveled at 52 years old, and he has always wanted this gig. And I think it's going to be very eye-opening. We talked about a ton of stuff. And I mentioned before losing his mom. Literally within hours of him getting the job, all he really wanted to tell his mom is, Mom, I made it. My dream came true.
Yep.
Now you are alive and you can see it. And she's in a coma. So
I know.
Louis Cristobal believes she heard it, but it's debatable. But it's so bittersweet if you think about all that and trying to say, hey, Mom, your boys have established themselves. It's really bittersweet and touching. But they both talk about it. Louis talks about it, and Mario talks about it.
All right, so I mentioned that we turned this into a two-parter because it was just too spectacular, and we weren't going to cut any of it. And so it'll part 1 airs today, and part 2 will air tomorrow. And of course, we'll combine the two eventually, and it'll be available on our YouTube channel and elsewhere. And it'll be there for an extended time for you guys to watch. And I recommend everybody make sure you see every minute of it. And Roy, one of the segments that really stood out to me was when you talked to Mario about coaching. And I wanted to play that real quick and get your reaction to that.
But before you roll it, the way I phrased it was, what was really, hell, you're making $8 million a year. It ain't bad. You got a good gig. And players make money too. Now they're going to make more money in college. But what's really ultimately good about what you do? And this was part of the exchange. What's good, finally, about coaching? What's good about doing what you do for a living beyond your own personal love for the craft?
I think it's the greatest form of education that I had coming up. The class on the grass, as my coach used to call it, was the most impactful, or were the most impactful moments that we had. You got into conversations and lessons that were learned that I don't think a classroom or a retreat could have ever taught those things. I mean, you were pushed to the point where you wanted to quit, but no one would let you quit. And you found that, you know what, maybe you didn't have limits. Maybe improvement was a real thing as long as you're willing to put in time. And then you also learned that it wasn't for everybody. And that's a good thing too, because then you realize, okay, I can outlast, and I could align myself with people that are like-minded, and we can go kick ass together. Coaching and people that are coaches, anyone that's good for young people, I love people that truly invest and care about being good for young people. And I mean, not just helping them get better at, tackling and running routes or whatnot, but that can affect them here and in here. That changes things, man. It's the last pit stop before real life. We're the last stop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that
Wow.
you could put it any better than that. I mean, this guy really loves what he does, but he also thinks about what he does and the impact of what he does. You know, one of the things in this interview, I had heard that Joe Paterno was one of his big heroes, and I brought it up, and he goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. It's not nothing that I don't have respect for him. Of course, I had respect for him, but that whole thing wearing a tie." People made it out to be I was wearing it like Al Golden did in respect to Joe Paterno, in honor of Joe Paterno. He wore a tie on the field. He says the only reason I was wearing a tie is they didn't bring the clothes in the locker room, and all I had was a sport jacket and a tie, so I had to wear it. He says, but after that, all the press said, "Oh, what a great, respectful thing he did for Joe Paterno." By the way, they got beat 59-0, I think, by Penn State at FIU, and Mario goes, "I had to wear a tie because everyone in the media said I was being respectful to Joe. For a year, I had to wear a tie. I didn't want to wear a damn tie." So it was actually very funny. It dispelled the rumor that Paterno was a big influence. We also talked about comparing himself in the same situation as Don Shula. Don Shula came to the Dolphins. He was 40. Mario's 52, or will be 52. Don, inherited a fairly crummy team, and he turned it into a playoff team right away. Similar situation. And I asked Mario if he in any way likens his scenario even to what a young Don Shula in 1970 was going through. And I'm going to save the answer so for people hear it. It was just fascinating. I really got a chance to pick his brain. And I love interviewing when you get down deep into someone's psyche about what they do. I think fundamentally what I love about interview and always have is tell the story. Tell the freaking story. And his story is incredible. It's perseverance, it's determination, it's passion, and organization and desire. What an amazing man this is. Listen, hell, they might win 7 games this year and make me.
You just gave everybody a heart attack, Roy. Roy, don't make me cry. Don't make me cry, Roy. Don't do it. Don't make me cry.
I'm talking hypothetically if they won 7 games. But I'm telling you, this cat is going to turn it around. And I think people will get that in this interview, maybe in some ways that they couldn't get in other press conference-y type of interviews.
Wow, 7 wins. Oh,
I'm just saying what happens if he wins 7 and now people want to run him out of town? I don't think that's going to happen.
Cheerios are flying all over the breakfast tables all across America right now at the thought of a 7-win season.
Hey, listen, man. I went to University of Miami when winning 7 games was a big deal. Trust me. Not anymore. Not anymore.
So there were so many things. We won't talk about them all. But I mean, there's so many interesting topics that came up. I did want to bring up a couple of them. You were able to unearth a little nugget, which I thought was really cool. That Mario and his brother Lou, that year that they were on the team together, used to have wrestling matches at the team hotel on Friday night before games, and all the other players would be like the spectators in the crowd. It was like WWE Friday Night SmackDown at the team hotel before games. Tell us about that one.
Well, we're going to set this up a little bit, but these guys, everyone thought it was this big loving bond between the two, big brother, which was Louis, and the younger brother, which was Mario. But there was part of them that they couldn't stand each other. They fought each other all the time. They broke furniture in the house. They drove the father and the mother nuts because they're always fighting. And then when Miami picked Louis, recruited him and signed him, Luis said, I kind of miss my brother. And it took him a few years after he got even out of college, where Luis said, I played 1 year with him and I miss being with him across the line. It was really a cool exchange about that. And then he also talked about how for a while there, Mario wasn't sure if he wanted to go to Miami because Luis was there and they were so competitive. He just wanted to kick Luis's ass somewhere. This is, I think, the soundbite that we have. You remember those Friday nights, I take it.
Oh yeah, in high school I couldn't stand the guy. I swear to God, I was like, man. I remember actually going on National Sign Day, watching him sign with Miami, and just telling myself, you know what? I'm not going to Miami now. I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to go kick his butt. That's what I'm going to do. And it was out of competitiveness, and there were, yeah, it got physical. But I mean, we were physical guys, man. We went to Columbus High School. We were coached by the best coaches ever. Those guys are my favorite guys. And but I did come out to practice and I watched them get after and grind. And we started talking. We're like, all right, maybe we should think about playing together. And I remember my dad, big cigar in his mouth, and we started looking at both of us. He almost with his eyes told us, I'm going to kick both your butts.
I love how you don't get to see Mario that candid. He's very tunnel visioned. But you get him telling stories, and there's some good stories talking about him with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and what it was like to work out with him. As we mentioned before, we talked about situations with Michael Irvin confronting him and said, if I hear they want to recruit you. You may not be good enough, but if you go somewhere else, we're going to kick your ass anyway. I mean, all the inside stories. Chuck Foreman's in this show, the great running back who played for the Vikings, of course, #1 draft pick, who will be a guest in coming weeks. We have Mark Richt talking about NIL. There's a ton of stuff. If you're a Kane fan and you're a Mario fan and you're excited, you got to see both parts of this show. Not just for me that I did it, but even as a fan, I'm sitting there watching and listening to it, and I'm going, I'm impressed. I really am impressed.
Hey, Roy, one of the things you talked to him about, which I thought was a great analogy, was contrasting at Oregon, where he had the franchise quarterback that they developed, Justin Herbert, who went on, obviously, to be a high draft pick in the NFL and is now having a great start to what is certain to be a long NFL career. And now he comes and he takes the job at Miami, and he's got Tyler Van Dyke. And we're not quite ready to say that Tyler Van Dyke is Justin Herbert just yet. Right. He's going to prove it again this year. He's only got a half season sample size, but he certainly seems to be on his way to being that type of player. And you asked Mario about that, what it means to have a franchise quarterback. What did he tell you?
He thinks that Tyler Van Dyke, these are his words, is probably the best all-around option at quarterback. I mean, there's talk about Bama, there's talk about SC, but he thinks he's got more tools and then he breaks it down, Gary. He was talking about what it was like at the line with Tyler Van Dyke and how this guy thinks and how he's doing checkoff. It was like he brought us into a huddle talking about Tyler Van Dyke and then talking about the comparisons. Justin Herbert was hurt for one of the seasons up in Oregon. And he talked about how the challenges that Herbert had in becoming a fully evolved player. And then, of course, talking about his career in the NFL. He really thinks Tyler Van Dyke is one of the top 2, 3, maybe #1 best quarterbacks in the country. You don't always hear that from a coach, by the way. They don't like to put the pressure on their kids. But he was super impressed with Tyler. I think as much as any player that he has right now, he's most impressed with Van Dyke, and who wouldn't be?
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Roy. Well, you did it again, man. I think everyone's going to be treated to something very special when they hit the start button on this video and watch this interview. And I can't thank you enough for another great episode. Well, this will actually be 2 episodes, and the beat will go on. There will be more, and we'll figure out what's next. There's some great stuff down the pike, but thank you so much for coming on this morning and talking about it a little bit.
Terrific. And Canes fans, if you're a Kane fan, you don't want to miss this 2-parter, because it'll really tell you get into the head of Mario Cristobal without platitudes and the same cliches like we're going to take them one at a time. None of that nonsense. It's all about what's in here and what's in here and how he decided this is it. This is it for him. This is his investment. And I really think you learn more about Mario and his life and his family and how he got to where he is in this interview, if I may say. I'm very proud of it. So please don't miss both parts. And thanks for the opportunity, Gary.
All right, Roy, thanks for stopping by. He's Roy Firestone, everybody, and he apologizes for making you cry over your breakfast.
Always.
With
always
that comment about a 7-win season.
Yeah, right. I will cry. I'll cry, too, if they win 7 games. Trust me.
We'll see you next time, Roy.
You got it.
All right, we have other stories on the website today, but before we get to that, let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
We here at LifeWallet take security very seriously. Our data security team is working constantly to make sure that your data is not accessed by anybody who you don't authorize.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
I have from CC, and he's thinking about it, and I'll be talking to CC. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We use leading technology standards like biometric data to make sure that only you have access to your data and your identity is protected. LifeWallet gives you access to your entire medical history and information at the touch of your finger, so that it can save you time and can save your life.
Data transfer complete.
Thought we'd play that commercial today in honor of all the great things that Mario Cristobal says in his interview with Roy Firestone about Tyler Van Dyke, and you guys will hear that when you get to that point in the video. All right, let's talk about other stories on the website today. We take a look at what this week is going to be like in Miami recruiting, and there's a lot to take in. There's some really big commit announcements that are going to be made this week, and they are going to shape, I think, in a large way, how successful that we end up talking about this Miami recruiting class. And I'll touch on a few of them really quick. You got offensive lineman Olaus Alinen. He's a big, physical, 320-pound kid from Finland, and he's weighing Miami and Alabama, and it's going back and forth. And I talk about drama. There's a lot of drama on this one. It was looking like Miami was surging to the front. Then there was scuttlebutt that Alabama made a comeback in some way, shape, or form, and was doing really well. So as we sit here on Tuesday morning, he's going to announce on Friday, and we honestly think that this one could go either way, and we're not really sure what's going to happen right now. We'll obviously be on this all week, but yeah, it could go Alabama way, it could go the Miami way. Neither one would surprise us at this time. Similar situation with defensive back Jonel Aguero. Has been a Georgia lean really throughout the entire recruiting process. And, Georgia's recruiting several defensive backs, and they're not going to be able to take all of them. And what's unknown is what their pecking order is. So it seems like they've been juggling a little bit with Jonel Aguero, and maybe there was a little uncertainty whether he would have a place at Georgia. Miami surges in, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt last week that Miami had taken the lead there. And, Kirby Smart and Mario Cristobal, they got a little bit of a rivalry going on. Like, they know each other well from when they were both on the staff at Alabama. And I think Kirby Smart is bound and determined that he's not going to lose a player to Mario. And so I think he's trying to make a comeback with Aguero. Probably has a decent shot. If I had to make a bet right now, I would say Aguero probably goes to Georgia. But this is another one that could go back and forth several times this week. He announces on Saturday. Let's see. Jaden Bonsu, okay, he's going to actually announce on Wednesday. That's a New Jersey safety prospect that I think Miami's in real good shape with. So I would look forward to that announcement on Wednesday. I think the Canes are doing pretty good for a Saturday announcement from Malik Bryant, the linebacker from the Orlando area. I think Miami's in a good spot there. Another guy from the Orlando area that we're not quite as sure about is Peyton Kirkland, the big offensive guard. That one's kind of bounced around. There's a lot of offensive linemen that Miami has been recruiting, kind of similar to what I just talked about with defensive back safeties at Georgia. So it's a juggling act for Miami. It's a juggling act for the kids. Do they have a place? Do they not have a place? Peyton Kirkland has a Michigan State option on the table. This one could go either way. We don't have a feel yet for which way it's going to go. We think that Kirkland wants to be a Miami Hurricane, but he's probably going to have to feel pretty sure about his place in the equation to pull the trigger for Miami on Saturday. So that's just a few of the things going on in recruiting. And we've got some other stories on the website today. We have an interesting defensive analysis of what Mario Cristobal has at UM now versus what he left at Oregon last year. And of course, yesterday we brought you a look at the offense. I know you guys liked it. I saw some of the chatter on the message boards. Today, we're talking defense, and you'll get a nice closer look at what Mario left back at Oregon on defense and how we think that compares to what he'll have on defense here at Miami. We've been talking to the local high school coaches, as you know, about their impressions of the Miami program today. Today, South Dade High coach Nate Hudson's turn to speak out on Miami and what he sees, and he shares his take on the Hurricanes under Mario Cristobal's guidance. We also continue our depth chart analysis today as part of our State of the U series with a look at the running back position. And there's really no clear number one back going into fall drills, and that's something to think about as we take a look at the running backs. And we also continue our player performance index breakdown with number 13, Jalen Rivers today. Plus, from yesterday, we caught up with five-star KJ Bolden from the 2024 class, and he very much has the Canes in his picture. So a lot to dig into. We also take a look at who we think is going to be the surprise offensive player on the roster. And we also take a deep dive into the quarterback position as well. So all kinds of stories for you guys to sink your teeth into at CaneSport.com today. But of course, make sure that you take the time to watch Roy Firestone's interview this morning and then part 2 tomorrow morning with Mario Cristobal. Like we said earlier, it's a great, great, great episode of our GOATs series. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. But thank you so much for starting your morning out with us. Matt Shodell's still on vacation. He'll be back maybe next week. We'll see. And we'll see when he wanders back. But for now, I'm Gary Ferman. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.